Patterns are everywhere, like really everywhere. They're on your clothes, in your daily schedule, in your house, and in the books you read. If you were to define a pattern, it would sound something like this: a reoccurring or repeating object, a predictable outcome, or an arrangement or sequence regularly found in comparable objects or events. That definition is good and all, but just think about, let's say, Argyle socks. Think about those standardized test questions that you have to guess what number comes next in the sequence. What happens when you take out a piece of the pattern? It obviously feels incomplete or poorly constructed. So, in order to make a pattern look complete, all pieces of the puzzle have to be present and in their right places. So, to put the right piece in place of the missing part of the pattern would be fulfilling the pattern. To fulfill is to bring to completion or reality, achieve or realize something desired, promised, or predicted. So let's think about those socks again. If a part of the pattern was missing and you put the corresponding piece in the pattern, you would be fulfilling the pattern. Scripture has tons of patterns woven throughout. In fact, you could see Scripture as one giant pattern. The Old Testament is a pattern with a missing piece, and the New Testament is that fitting piece that fulfills the pattern. More specifically, the gospel is the fitting piece, and the rest of the New Testament explains further how that piece fits in perfectly to the scriptural pattern. One of those reoccurring objects throughout Scripture is the covenantal formula. I will be your God, and you will be my people. That reoccurs 25 times throughout Scripture. The reoccurrences are emphasizing the importance of God's commitment to us and our call to continually be faithful to Him. The problem to this pattern is that one end of the pattern is not holding up its part of the deal. Scripture reveals to us that God's faithfulness to us is unchanging and steadfast or unwavering. While we see God's unchanging faithfulness, we see that our call to be faithful to Him always seems to fall short. So thus, the pattern remains unfinished or even unfulfilled, at least until we enter into the Gospels and the New Testament. Jesus fulfills all the lingering patterns and answers that the tough questions from the Old Testament have. He is the fulfilling portion to the covenant formula because we cannot uphold our end of the deal. For that, we should rejoice because we have a God who sends His own Son to save us from our shortcomings and provides for us a way to still fulfill our end of the covenant, and that is the only way, and that way is through Jesus. He cares about us so much that He is willing to uphold both ends of the covenant on our behalf. All you need to do is trust and believe that this is true. As we see this pattern throughout Scripture, we have to ask if it is being fulfilled and how. One of the other reoccurring patterns within Scripture is God revealing how He continually stays committed and faithful to us while also revealing our unfaithfulness in this relationship, in this covenant. So how does the covenant formula work if one part of it fails to uphold its end of the deal? Good question. That is where the New Testament comes into play. It reveals to us the fulfillment of the Old Testament problems. When we realize this, we find out that the relationship between God and man is broken because man's inability to uphold faithfulness to God. The New Testament fulfills this problem through the birth, death, and resurrection of Jesus. A human problem takes God's ability as a human to solve our sinful pattern and disobedience.